Hey everyone, so I wanted to give a quick update on EK for 3.21 and to tell you how it's going to be compared to 320 and how the buffs and nerfs affect us. So I'm going to give the TLDR on the endgame mapping version of EK, and then we'll talk about leveling, and then we will go and talk about mapping and the changes we have to make there. So the TLDR of all this is EK was nerfed by maybe 2 to 3%. It is a very tiny change. We did lose quite a few important masteries, but we also did gain quite a lot of usefulness out of the reservation mana mastery. And overall, putting EK together is actually cheaper now. You do not need a level 3 Enlighten anymore. So you are saving yourself a large amount of money when putting together your EK build. With some tech that I learned last season, we can also make up all of the damage that we lost through the mastery changes by picking up a new cluster jewel for some increased ailment effect. Overall, you are not going to notice a difference. As soon as you are swapped over to EK, it is going to tear through all content the same exact way it did last season with absolutely no problems. I can promise you that. As for leveling, unfortunately, leveling is going to be kind of painful. There is nothing we can do about this. GGG has decided to just nerf casting leveling for some odd, weird reason this season. So because of that, getting to Act 4 is going to be a little bit painful. But once you get to Act 4, once you swap to Wave of Conviction, you'll have zero problems. None of the nerfs affect us from Act 4 and beyond. It is simply Acts 1, 2, 4. They have nerfed Spark. They have nerfed things related to Spark, which is going to make this a little bit more painful. So let's get into that and talk about how you're going to level from Acts 1 to 4, talk about leveling from 4 to 10, and then we'll go talk about the changes to EK and how to swap over to EK from Wave Conviction. So to start in Act 1, the biggest nerf is we are losing the lightning damage with non-critical strikes is lucky. This immediately is a 30% damage increase. And as you go to Act 2, Act 3, this is a 20% damage increase. This is just a massive nerf with absolutely no compensation. There's nothing we can do about this. So your damage overall is just 20% weaker. All of the changes have been marked with pink for all of the things that we have to change to make up for the nerfs, as well as a quick summary of everything. So let's go over everything. The only saving grace of all this is you can now get Sniper's Mark in Act 1. So this is going to change how you start your build. Before I was telling you to start a Ranger, get Pierce, and then start a Scion and get Onslaught from a Scion. Well, Onslaught has been removed from the game, so we have no reason to go for that anymore, but we have Sniper's Mark from Mudflats. So what you're going to be doing now is you're going to be starting that Ranger, you're going to be getting Pierce, you're going to be very quickly running over to Mudflats, breaking some eggs, going into the cave, then immediately coming back to town, getting Sniper's Mark, putting both the Sniper's Mark and the Pierce into your stash, and then make your Witch, and then you'll be able to use those. Sniper's Mark at level 1 should be about a 20 to 30% damage increase. So it will actually kind of partially make up for the mastery nerf. But when we add all the other nerfs on top of it, it's still going to overall be worse. The other major nerf here is Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge no longer gives you global damage. It instead gives you increased cast speed for whatever it is linked to. They do not want you to Arcane Surge on a mobility skill anymore and just benefit from free damage. So what we have to do now is we have to link Arcane Surge to Spark, and we're going to be using that as our link in replacement for Onslaught until we can replace it later on with Controlled Destruction. So your link for Act 1 is going to be Spark, Pierce, and Arcane Surge. It is not the best, but we can make do with it. The biggest nerf to all of this is the wand vendor recipe is completely removed from the game. That means that we cannot craft added lightning damage to both of our wands and get a massive amount of increased damage. Instead, what they have done is they have changed some of the bases to give added damage instead. So what we want for this build is we want to look for spiraled wands. Now, unfortunately, this added lightning damage that is available on this wand does not make up for the added lightning damage that you have gotten from doing the recipe system and the increased spell damage implicit that we are losing. This overall is going to be weaker than a wand that you could have gotten in 320. And unfortunately, this kind of is what makes all of this slower. We can deal with the Onslaught nerf. We can deal with the non-crits nerf because we get Sniper's Mark substantially earlier. We can deal with the Arcane Surge change because it kind of makes up for Onslaught, but there's absolutely nothing we can do here. So you simply are going to have to look for 2 spiraled wands and just live with Act 1 and Act 2 being a little bit more painful. Once you get yourself Herald the Thunder, it shouldn't be that bad. Those are all the changes for leveling. TLDR is Act 1 is going to be painful. You are going to have to make do, but as soon as you get to Act 4, you will have 0 problem. So let's talk about how this will look in Endgame and how you will transition from Wave Conviction to EK and how that overall will look. So the nerfs this season are all of these. We lost the 40% increased effect of Ailment's Mastery and the Fire Damage Multiplier and Negative Fire Res Masteries, which are available on this node right here and the Fire node by the Timeless Jewel right here. There's absolutely no replacement for these, so we just have to deal with a minus 15% damage loss. But through tech I have learned last season, for the budget setup, I was telling you to get 3 clusters. 2 of them were Purposeful Harbinger and Powered Envoy. 1 was Brush with Death Blowback. We are now going to also be looking for an increased effect of non-damaging ailments medium with Astonishing Affliction and Overshock. Now, these jewels are ridiculously cheap, and hitting Astonishing Affliction and Overshock is very cheap as well. So putting this together is not that expensive and pretty much makes up for all of the loss of 2 masters. Between the points that we lose and between the other few changes we'll be making, it's overall a 2 to 3% DPS loss, but that's not bad. You will not feel that. I promise you, you will not notice a 2 to 3% DPS loss. So through the cluster tech, we can completely make up all of this. And the reason for that is if we look at our shock value, the 15% that we get from Shaper Storms, we can increase it to 27%. And this shock is absolutely busted and makes up for all of the damage loss. The other change is the 25% Discipline Mana Reservation Mastery removed, but that is more than made up by the 12% Mana Reservation Mastery that is added to the game. Because we now have 12% raw Mana Reservation Mastery, this means that we actually do not need a level 3 Enlighten. If you go and get a 3% Mana Reservation Efficiency jewel, or you corrupt one of your dot multi jewels to Mana Reservation Efficiency, and you pick up a mana node with 12% Mana Reservation Mastery on it, you will actually have more mana than before. And this allows us to completely remove the Enlighten, which makes this build substantially cheaper to put together and a lot more so self-found friendly as you don't need to find Enlighten. The biggest change, and this is going to be big depending on how you build or basically non-existent, again, depending on how you build, is the fact that the Spell Suppression Mastery lost the 12% chance to suppress spell damage if your boots, helmet, and gloves have evasion. This has been moved from Spell Suppression to a evasion node, and unfortunately the only close evasion nodes is right here and right here. So it is basically impossible for us to actually take this. So getting 100% spell suppression in this build has gotten very expensive. You only have 2 real options to be able to do this. Your first option is to get a Watcher's Eye that has the Hatred conversion roll on it. We still need this. This alone was very expensive last season. And now you will have to also get Grace Spell Suppress. Because of this, this combo is going to be atrociously expensive, but if you want a super simple way of fixing your spell suppression, this more than makes up for it. Unfortunately, this is not really going to be an early and mid-game option. This is only going to be a late-game optimization. So your only other choice to get the missing spell suppression is to instead get yourself a jewel. With a small cluster jewel that has added passives gives spell suppress, you can get a 2 passive one to get 2% on the small E, and then you can either get yourself Aerialist or Untouchable. Untouchable gives you evasion rating. Aerialist gives you a little bit of dexterity, which might help you have enough dexterity for this build. And with this, you are able to get at least 12% spell suppression, which makes up for exactly how much the mastery gave you. The only downside to this is if you want to do this, you are going to lose a jewel, and our jewels are worth about 5 to 6% of our DPS. So you are going to lose some damage, but you can get a little bit of life on the small jewel to make up for it. This will also make you have to more tightly look at your spell suppress rolls, because currently we are 3% overcapped with this. But if my spell suppression rolls on my gloves, boots, and so on were a little bit lower, this might not be the case. Again, if you didn't bother getting spell suppression early in this build, or simply never got it in general, that change completely doesn't affect you at all. But if you were someone who wanted spell suppression, unfortunately, that is going to be changed. All of these are also listed in the notes as a TLDR if you want it in written format. Outside of that, there are no changes for this build. The pathing is going to look exactly the same. The process of swapping from Wave of Conviction to EK is going to be exactly the same as well. You're going to need a Gloomfang. You're going to need to get your Watcher's Eye. You're going to need to get your gloves, and then you're going to be able to swap and have a comfy time. If you level this build in 320 and want to level again, it should feel exactly the same. You'll have no problems. Have fun with it. If you are new to this build and want a full guide on how to set all this up, again, I have two full guides, one on leveling and early game that goes over the full transition for Way of Conviction and into EK. It goes over everything in these notes. And I have a second follow-up guide on how to take everything that I've listed here and elevate this to a higher tier with a mid-game variant and better items. One more thing to mention is this 12% mana reservation mastery actually makes a really big difference in the mid-game version of this build. Because of this, fitting all of our auras is going to be even easier in the mid-game setup. We will need less total reservation to be able to fit everything into our bow. And this will either save you from having to get a level 4 Enlighten, and you'll be able to get a level 3 Enlighten, or you will either not need to get a reservation efficiency implicit or a reservation efficiency suffix from essences. One of these things is going to be dropped, and I believe for most people, the right option is going to be to get a level 3 Enlighten instead of a level 4 Enlighten. This will save you a massive amount of money. And if anything, overall, massively buffs this build because you are now able to get to this kind of damage and put this build together for a substantially cheaper price point. I think if you're interested in playing EK, you will have a wonderful time this season. Again, if you have any questions, I am more than happy to answer all EK questions you have. The path of buildings will be in the description. Please feel free to look through them. I have put a lot of time and effort into answering most of your questions here. If you have any other questions, feel free to come by my stream or leave a comment in comments below the video, and I'll happily do my best to answer whatever question you have. I love talking about this build. I played it all season for a reason. Other than that, if you choose to play EK again, or if this is your first time playing it, I hope you have a wonderful time within 3.21. I hope you get lost in the fun and the wonders of this build and enjoy it as much as I did. And I hope you have a good Leaguestart. I'm sorry that GGG decided to nerf wands and decided to make leveling so painful, but if you can get past that and get to Way of Conviction, you will have a wonderful time and enjoy this build. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I stream on Twitch every single day, so please feel free to come by and watch my shenanigans. And if not, I hope to see you guys in other videos before the season starts and after the season is going. Thank you guys and have a wonderful day.